Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Sophie, and on all of us at the locally based, independently owned bookstore, Books and Books in Miami, Florida, and in partnership with Miami Book Fair, it's my pleasure to welcome you to a virtual afternoon with Anne Bérubé to discuss her book, The Burnout Antidote, a spiritual guide to empowerment for empaths, overgivers, and highly sensitive people, published by our friends at Llewellyn. Dr. Anne Bérubé is a spiritual teacher with an uncommon ability to share her story and insights in a way that awakens the inner wisdom in others. She helps people free themselves from the societal and parental conditioning that is holding them back from realizing the highest calling of their soul. To moderate this afternoon's conversation, we're joined by Nancy Regan, a professional communicator whose dynamic career includes TV and podcast hosting, emceeing, and presentation coaching. Just a quick reminder that throughout this broadcast, you can post questions below in the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. And please order your copy of The Burnout Antidote from Books and Books and support independent bookstores. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests to the virtual stage.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Sophie, so much. Oh, hold on one sec. You're muted, Anne. Can you? It doesn't matter how, you know what? We are still, this happens every meeting I'm in, I think. We always end up with some kind of muting issue. Can someone let me know if you can hear me? Anne, you can hear me, but we can't hear you. So you're muted at the moment.
Hi there, I'm working on
There we go. Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about Anne Bérubé because I know her pretty well. So while we're trying to get her microphone sorted out, I'd just like to tell you that the reason I'm here today is because I think I'm her biggest fan. I'm pretty sure, actually. If there was a competition, I could fight my way through to the number one spot. And part of the reason for that, a large part of the reason for that, apart from her being an extraordinary human being and a wonderful friend, is that she is a transformative teacher. She has helped me so much in my life. I've just published my first book, and I've told Anne several times, I think she gets tired of hearing me say, this would not exist if not for the work I've done with you. And we can hear her now. So there you go. Hello, my friend.
Hi, Nancy. So good to see you. And hi, everyone. Thank you for being here.
I know. I think these days any kind of connection like this we can have is so powerful to sustaining us in these difficult times. So thank you, Anne, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, it's my pleasure. It's my favorite thing to do. And to do it
Let-
with you.
Let's dive right in. Now, I want to warn people that when you buy this book, this is what it will look like. You will have all sorts of tabs. It will have highlights and lines all through the book. So you might, if you are someone who likes a pristine book, get 2 copies because this is something that you will come back to over and over again, and it's incredible. So let's dive right in, and let's talk about burnout. I believe that we are here to contribute, to be of service. But why is it that all too often that kind of sense of purpose leaves us feeling depleted?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like right now, there's really is an epidemic of people burning out, and I see it as a crisis in meaning. Right. I think that if we don't address the roots of the issues, which in my perspective and in my experience are emotional and spiritual, then we'll just address burnout on the surface, and we'll change a little something here, we'll get better at time management here, and then we'll maybe change our schedule over here, but really at the few weeks later, a few months later, we'll just find ourselves back in this space that we just don't feel energized anymore. We don't feel enthusiastic about what we're doing, and we're hitting a wall, and we need light workers more than ever right now. And it is mostly light workers, empaths, healers, highly sensitive people who know they're here for service, who are burning out the most, and sometimes throwing in the towel and saying like, I can't do this anymore, even though I know this is my purpose. This is why I came. I know I'm here for this. So what is happening? And so, I wrote the book for myself, Nancy, because, because as a spiritual coach, I hit a wall and I continue to hit walls. I think that we just love and we're passionate about being there for others so much that we push, and we especially if you're someone with like me, like a type A personality, and like Capricorn, and just like really want to do everything you can. I was a spiritual coach for many years, and I had a very thriving practice, and people got results. They loved the sessions they were having with me. I really enjoyed being with people, but I got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And I remember my husband Paul like coming in my office, and I was like typing an email, like huffing and puffing, like he's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "I think I need to refer this client to someone who still likes people."
That's the best line.
You feel a little bit embarrassed, to say that, because it's not very like spiritual to say that. But I think we can all relate to getting to this place of resentment sometimes, right? Like it kind of just comes in, and you're like, what is it? I love what I do. I love people. And right now I just can't do it anymore. So the book is about addressing burnout at the spiritual level, looking at those layers of conditioning that are coloring the reason why we serve, right? Mm-hmm. We ask ourselves, like, why do I serve? And often the answer is because people need me, because there is a need, right? Or because I'm good at it, therefore I should. Or I've been doing it my whole life, therefore I should continue to do it, right? So those answers, and I have them in the book, like all these reasons, they're just not sustainable. You get to a place where because it doesn't include your core essence, it doesn't include you, it doesn't include your fulfillment. And your fulfillment is so important.
Yes. And it reminds me when you say that of the way, I love the way you talk about our inclination to outsource our happiness. And that's very connected to what you're saying there, I think, in terms of outsourcing, why we do things instead of it coming really from within.
Yes, exactly. And, what I realized is that I was driven by a need to be needed. And I didn't realize that until I had to stop and take some time and ask myself that question, like, what is driving me to do this? What is driving me to do this career that is very demanding, and it's also so fulfilling at the same time? What is driving me? And I realized I had a need to be needed. And so I asked myself, Nancy, like, what happens if nobody needs me anymore? What if
love that.
Right? Like my family, my friends, my kids, my clients, there's nobody needs me anymore. Who's Anne? Yes. Who am I? And I remember asking that question and like having no answer. Like I actually don't know myself unless I'm there for other people. And then so I went a little deeper and I asked, who was I before people needed me? And I think a lot of listeners can relate to being born for someone, or being born, and right away having kind of been there for someone else, like it's this the world kind of comes in really quickly and starts to take, right? And so then you learn love and you learn who you are by what you do and who you are to other people, not just because you're you.
Yeah. And so that teaches you that you have to be those things in order to get praise and approval and positive feedback.
Absolutely. And I know you write really well about that.
We're not talking about me today. We're talking about
Not
you.
yet.
And let me read something. Actually, it's I find that so interesting because the visual is, you're saying, we so often try to put a band-aid on what is a deep wound, and we don't address it at the wound level. And so I love what you're saying about needing to go deep into spirituality, but also into our vessel, into our body. And I'd like to read just a very quick couple of lines of yours that say, I have studied many wisdom traditions and scientific theories and have tried and tested hundreds of approaches to help free people from burnout and inner suffering. Nothing has felt more real, accelerated, and empowering than the process of embodiment. So let's dive right into that juicy subject.
Yes. Well,
great.
I talk about in the book the moment where I came home to my body, 17 years ago, I think now, in a women in leadership program where, before my head was like this thing, my body was a stick that I carry my head from conferences to conferences, right? Like I just didn't know that this beautiful device, this instrument, had a purpose to process energy and information. And when I came home to myself, it was very messy. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of snot. There was a lot of sounds. There was a lot of shaking. There was a lot of trembling. I think, some people might relate to that first time where you crack open and then realizing that, oh my goodness, like this inner world of mine is rich. Everything below the neck is really sensual in a sensational way. Like there's such an incredible world. And so embodiment to me means right here, right now, as you breathe deeply, you're here, you're in your body. So your attention is not in what you're going to say next. It's not in worries about the past or concerns about the future. It's actually in the sensation and the impulse of the direct experience in your body below your thoughts. And if people are new to the concept, it can be a little abstract. And I think, Nancy, you remember having an experience of like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not quite sure what you mean until
I remember you saying, how does that feel? We were talking about something that I was saying, this is an issue for me. And you said, well, how does that feel in your body? And I was like, I don't know what that means. And now I think about that, and that is my practice all the time that you've gifted me with. But, I think when we are living in a surface manner in the world, so often we're living from the neck up. And the moment we stop, like at the beginning of the pandemic, so many people, that threw us into turmoil, not just because of the fear and the anxiety in the world, but we had to sit with ourselves.
Yes. And with the discomfort of what wants to move. And what I mean by that is that when you start to sit with yourself and just be with yourself and breathe deeply, you really want to just grab a glass of wine, or you want to turn on Netflix, you want to find, or you want to scroll through social media, because we're not used to staying with the discomfort. But if you stay long enough with it, you start to peel off these layers that are keeping your nervous system in fight or flight, that are keeping your inner world in this sympathetic response. And we don't even realize it, that we're protecting ourselves. And, Dr. Bruce Lipton says this in his book, The Biology of Belief, that the cells in the body can't be in protection mode and in growth mode at the same time.
Yes.
So when you're protecting yourself from feeling the bad that you think, you label as bad, you're also keeping at bay the good and the joy and the peace that's available to you. We can't be selective. Say, I'm just gonna, take the good and then not feel the intensity of what we carry from our childhood, from our young adulthood, from the events that happen. They register in the cells of the body. So it's quite the journey, but to me it's the most real and intimate relationship I can have with myself.
Yes. Anne, I'm thinking about how being on retreats with you, so going and attending your retreat you just did in Kauai, for instance, in March, was life changing, really, for me. Yet, of course, there are a lot of people who don't have the time, space, or maybe even the resources to go and do that kind of a retreat. And what I love about this book, and it makes me emotional just to say it, what I love about it is that you have really given so many tools in here. So it's not like, here, read my book, and then you have to come to my retreat. Like, I would encourage anyone to go to your retreat. But what I love is that by reading the book, you're doing the work. And you have so many practical exercises. So this is a short period of time today. We could talk, believe me, folks, we could talk for 3 days straight and not run out of interesting topics. But because we have a short window, what can you give people in terms of where do we start? I'm sure a lot of people listening are identifying as oversharers or burned out empaths.
Yes.
Where can we start?
Absolutely. And I think I get that a lot. I get that question a lot. Is I am taking care of my elderly mother. I have a full-time job. I have kids. I don't have time to do a retreat, or I don't have time to go and, go and take a day or two here and there. So I know that. I know that feeling. Like you know, working full time, 2 kids, like I know what that feels like. And so the first step in the book is called Stop, You're More Tired Than You Think.
Love
and
that.
and the very first exercise that I propose is a breathing practice. And it's the Ha breath from the Huna tradition, which is the spirituality of the ancient Hawaiians. And I do it every morning when I wake up. So I'm in bed and I realize I'm awake, right? Like there's this moment where you're like, okay, I'm awake, and I resist the temptation to have my to-do list start creeping in. I just kind of, put a shit aside for a bit, and I do 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on, the morning. But 3 minutes will make a difference of the Ha breath, and it's in through the nose and it's out through the mouth, constricting the throat. Yes.
People might have noticed that I started doing it the moment you said the Ha breath and started talking about it. I'm like one of Pavlov's dogs, It's like I start salivating. I right away, the moment you say it, my body is like, yes, that breath is so nourishing.
So nourishing. And it sounds so simple, but it will start. So you constrict the throat a little bit at the exhalation and you drop your jaw so that it massages your vagus nerve, which is this nerve that goes from the brainstem and wraps around your throat, your lungs, your heart, and goes into your stomach. And so when you massage that nerve, it activates your parasympathetic really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2-3 of these breaths, you'll start to feel a difference. And what I noticed, and having kind of led people through workshops for 15 years now, is that when you create that space within yourself, you'll start to see the space showing up outside of yourself. And so you start by doing these little inner freedom, inner space, inner self-love practices, and you'll start to notice that, huh, I have an extra hour here in the day. Huh,
Hmm.
this just got canceled. Interesting. Because when there's space inside, there's space outside. And so I say that's where if you think there's no space at all, you cannot even create a meditation practice. Start with the hot breath, and you'll see a big difference.
I love the idea that you're appealing to both sides of both hemispheres in people's brains as well with this practice, because the physical side that you described, the vagus nerve, is easy for people to understand at a, intellectual level. So it really does have that effect. But you're also doing something um, a little less tangible, which is showing compassion to yourself. And I think that definitely you reap the harvest of that. But that leads to what you describe as the inner child. And I love the way you talk about the connection between our inclination to overserve and our inner child.
Yes.
Can you go
Yes,
into
yes,
that a little
yes.
bit? I think that would be so helpful for people.
Absolutely. So, when I was asking that question, who was Anne before she was needed, and there was no answer, there was an answer. There was like a sadness, and there was like a weight in my stomach. And so I started a conversation with that inner child, right? That 2-year-old inside me, that when I ask her, who are you before people start taking from you? And she's just sad. And so I start to have this conversation with her the way that I would want the ideal mother to have a conversation with me, right? So I'll say, hi, sweetheart. Hi, beautiful. I love you. I'm so sorry you're sad. I'm here. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. It's okay that you're sad. It's okay that you don't want to talk to me right now, but I'm not going anywhere. And so this relationship that you start to build with your inner child is beginning the healing of what's holding her back from showing herself to you, really.
Mhm.
And so this is really the center in the book, like this the turning point in the book is when you get to meet that wound and you get to see the gift that she holds on the other side of that healing. And it is what she holds is that core essence, it's that power, it's your medicine. And then the way you serve after that changes. Like, because now you're serving from that place of being full and being connected to your power. And there's definitely more. No, there's boundaries, there's line in the sands, there's definitely changes. But then there's like all these new people that start to show up, and there's this new way that you're invited to create and to be of service in the world. And it's, you kind of find that passion again and that
Mhm.
enthusiasm for being a healer, a light worker, a helper, a guide, a mom.
Yes, it's beautiful. And I really want to reiterate that you have really great exercises. So if I was listening to this and hadn't done your work before, 5 years ago, I would have gone, well, yeah, I get that, but am I going to be able to do that? But your exercises are so clear and they walk us through that process. But when you're speaking, I thought about recently I came up with the shortest story ever, which I think is true for so many people. Once upon a time, there was a human who was born and wanted unconditional love and didn't get it. The end. and and what I love about the process you're talking about is we're looking for that source of happiness outside of ourselves or to be completed. And you're saying we can give ourselves that unconditional love that we've been desperately searching for our whole lives.
Absolutely. And we are the only one that can give it to us in the way we want, really,
Yes.
truly. And
Yeah.
so when we start to do that, like it kind of like it liberates, it really heals our relationships, because then we don't expect these things from people that really they can't give us, and they they don't know, um they don't know what we need. We know what we need. And I talk a lot about in the book, like finding the mother and the father within, just really
Yes.
allowing yourself to be loved by that father and mother energy that lives in you, like the great mother, the great father, they're all here. And that changes your relationship with your husband, with your wife. It changes your relationship with your kids, your parents, and authority figures, right? Because when we heal that parent child dynamic, it really shifts authority figures, like how, because often that's what we have issues with at work is that, it's our manager or our boss that or that parent child dynamic is being transposed into
Yes.
that authority figure relationship. So it changes everything.
It really does. It changes everything. So this is not just a book. This is a switch that you can flip in your life to achieve greater happiness, contentedness, resilience. And I know I'm not supposed to go past 2:20 or 1:25 Eastern. So I guess I should ask if Sophie would like to have some questions directed to Anne. Hi, Sophie.
Hi there. So Lee has a question in the chat. It's, can you offer some insight for connecting more with yourself in a world that often keeps us distracted?
Absolutely. Yes. And so when it comes to electronics and screens and social media, it's really important to have discipline around, are you taking up time for being with yourself, for loving yourself, for caring for those emotions that are wanting to come up? And is our social media, entertainment, electronics, a distraction from fully feeling what is happening in your inner world? And so that breath practice, I will do it in the morning when I wake up, but I'll also do it like while I'm cooking, when I'm at a red light. In the afternoon, if I feel like I have a lull, like I'll just lay down and breathe and do that breath. I'll do it before bedtime. And so I find that if you have a self-love, self, you know, self-guided compassion for yourself, a practice like this, you'll have something to go to when you feel overwhelmed by the distraction. I totally understand that. I get it too. Like it's easy to be working all the time. You can be working from the until you go to sleep. We didn't used to be like that. You come back from the office and that's it. Like, you don't work anymore. Now we if we're addicted to being productive, which a lot of us are, um, it requires a daily coming back to yourself. So I would recommend that breath practice. And then the second exercise in the book, which is in chapter 2, is a meditation that's called the white feather meditation. So you bring your attention, you bring the white feather down into your body very slowly. I think we take 12 minutes to get there. And by the way, all the exercise and meditations in my book are recorded audio and video on my website for free. So you can also just allow yourself to listen to my voice taking you through these as opposed to just reading them. So that one I would recommend once a day. Is it's easy in the sense that keeps your mind engaged because you're following a feather, so your attention is engaged and you're hearing my voice. But at the end of it, you're like, whoa, I'm here. Like, I'm nowhere else. I'm
Whoa,
in my body. It's like, where was I for the last 12 minutes? I was not in my thoughts. I wasn't distracted. And I feel calmer and I feel more still inside myself. And then I feel like I have more perspective and maybe even insights that are coming up that are feel a little new. And so I would recommend, a daily practice. And like I said, it doesn't have to be like sitting on a mat cross-legged on your meditation cushion, like with specific incense. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, I'll be doing the dishes. Cooking dinner, you know? And so yeah, that would be my recommendation. And then just catching yourself. Am I turning on Netflix, or am I answering emails because it's a habit now that I have to stay busy?
Yes.
Or is it
That's it.
is it a conscious choice that this is what I want to do right now?
Yes, but as you use these practices, the ones you're talking about and others, you get so that you are in better communication with your heart and soul, so that when you have the instinct to watch a show, you can just witness it for a sec, okay, and do that self-inquiry. Okay, what is this about? Is this me running away, or is this me just wanting to relax for a moment? It's okay. Of course, we're not saying delete your Netflix account.
Don't do that.
but yeah, but that's what you've taught me so well, to by showing myself compassion, to say, okay, wait a sec, catch and release. What's this about? And yeah, give myself some time, and then also have the balance of being able to watch a show with your
Exactly.
friend or partner or whomever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. That was a great answer. Let's have another question.
Sophie.
I actually have a question myself, sort of on the literary and writing side of things. So how was it writing this book compared to your memoir? And like, were you writing during the pandemic? Did that impact anything, or how you approached it, what you included?
Yes, it's so interesting because I had such a full plate of traveling and workshops, when the pandemic hit and everything was canceled, and it gave me the space to finally focus on finishing the book. And so, that it was a gift. All that space allowed me to write the book. I think it would have taken a much longer because I tend to fill up my schedule. I tend to keep myself quite busy. And so this was very different than writing the memoir, because the memoir felt more like storytelling. And it was storytelling, but the feeling is different. It's more about, it just kind of flows out of you in a organic way, and you just rewrite it and rewrite it until you feel happy with, okay, I think this is the best way for the reader to receive my story. This is more of a self-help book, there are quite a bit of stories in it, but I kind of approached it more like an essay, right? Like this is what I want to cover in these chapters, and I had the structure before I had the book, right? Like I had the structure, I had all the chapters, title and subtitles, and I knew what I wanted, and then I wrote. And that's very different than, writing your story. But I love both. Both feel very different, but I enjoy both. Yeah.
I would like to say, though, Sophie, as her friend and greatest fan, as I've said, this is not like any essay I've ever read. It's much more compelling than, as soon as you say essay, I'm like, I'm not going to let her get away with that, because I understand about the structure, but if I hear essay, I go, oh, essay. As someone with ADHD, I think it brings back bad memories, but it really, it is so compelling, and it connects right into your heart. Amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Nancy, you just wrote a memoir as well, right? And so
you stop trying to share your spotlight with me, young lady.
She wrote an amazing book, and I'm going to say the title. It's called from showing off to showing
Backwards.
up, right?
I think this is backwards from showing off to showing up. But Anne, it's not available in the States until fall. So it's all about the burnout antidote today, folks. Although this might be backwards as well. Can you see that, Sophie?
Yeah, actually it's right way for me anyway.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Another question. So it's any advice for highly sensitive people on working through current events and tragedies and staying resilient in troubling times?
Yes, absolutely. So it's important that the more chaos there is around you and the more tragedy and intensity there is, the better you are at boundaries around receiving that kind of information, right? It can be an addiction to keep looking at the news, keep opening up that story, right? Because it keeps you in fight or flight, it keeps you vigilant. And when you're vigilant, you're not connected to your power. You're not connected to your source, right? And so it's okay to look at the news, but then don't look at it again. Don't go back. Don't go back for more details, because when you are, and a lot of people of service and healers and moms and like parents and people who are of service are highly sensitive. It requires us to live differently, so we do have to create some boundaries and some protection for ourselves, because that high sensitivity is actually a superpower. It's actually your gift to the world, but if it gets depleted by the outside world, then there'll be nothing left, and you'll resent, being so sensitive. And so it might feel selfish to, for example, stop seeing a certain person, stop reading the news, stop going to a certain place where you feel that it's too much and your energy is being drained. It might feel selfish because you're someone who loves to love. You love to be there for other people. But it is so loving for yourself to protect that innocence. You want to protect your high sensitivity like you would protect that 2-year-old we talked about earlier. Her purity and her innocence need your protection. And so it's so important. It's radical soul love to just put the boundary, say, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go talk to that person. I'm not going to read the news a third time today or a second time today. Or maybe I'll take a break for 2 weeks, see what happens if I don't engage. And it doesn't make you an irresponsible citizen. It actually allows you to be more powerful when you do go out in the world and you use your sensitivity as a power. And that's what we need. We don't need more people who are drained by the immensity of everything happening. We need more people empowered by their own light to change the world, to make a difference in what we see that's happening. So I want to say, like, it's a balance, but it's more than a balance. It's actually taking yourself out of many of those situations in these relationships. And at first you'll feel very selfish. You'll feel like it's not very loving, it's not very spiritual, it's not very responsible, but you'll start to notice your capacity. As your capacity to love yourself and to protect that innocence in you grows, you'll see your capacity to support and help others in a way that's really meaningful grow and grow.
Yeah, it really is that idea of you have to put your own mask on first in order to be able to help others. It's I think that's part of the reason this book is such a contribution to the world, Anne, because I think people need to hear this message so desperately. As you say, people who are empaths just want to give and want to help, but
Yes,
boundaries aren't always natural to us.
absolutely. And psychologists make the difference. They talk about the difference between cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. And emotional empathy is, something happens, you're going through something, and I'm with you, and then suddenly I'm up and out of myself and I'm in your emotions. There's a contagion of emotion there that's happening. And so I'm not in my power anymore. I'm with you in your emotion, and we're both kind of spiraling down, and my energy is drained by the second. Cognitive empathy is very different. I'm in my power, I'm here, I'm present to myself, and I understand intellectually what you're going through. Like, I understand that you're feeling this way and that you're struggling, but I'm here. I'm not in you. I'm here. I'm in my power. I'm breathing deeply. I'm in my body. I'm in my core essence. And then when I'm here, I can actually be in reverence for the more that you can be. I can see you for the light that you are. I can see you more than what you're presenting. So I call that embodied empathy, and it's so powerful. It changes the way you interact with people and the way you help people, because often it means you're not talking as much, you're not, just the quality of your presence is what's more important, that you're here with yourself, and then just that is enough often to help that person. Your power, right? So I redefine empathy in the book. I think it's really, really important, because it can be very toxic for people who are highly sensitive.
That's a beautiful answer. Sophie, what did you think of that? It's powerful.
Important and so timely and so powerful, like you said. On that note, I just want to thank you both so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you to our partner, Miami Book Fair, and for all of you for watching and reading. I hope you'll support Anne in independent bookstores by ordering your copy of the Burnout Antidote. You can find it at the green link below or pop into one of our stores in Miami. And thank you all again and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sophie. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Nancy.